So let's have a look at the major cases that Joana Marques Vidal had in her hands and why she was a problem for the socialists and all those that protect this corrupt regime like Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa. The first case is, of course, Operação Marquês. Corruption and fraud by former socialist Prime Minister José Sócrates and many other powerful figures in Portugal that have in fact ruined this country. As I mentioned in my previous video, Ivo Rosa, the instruction judge for this case, removed all corruption crimes from it. The next case is Operação Fiz, corruption and fraud involving many powerful figures in Portugal, including Manuel Vicente, ex-vice president of Angola, which Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa and António Costa made sure would never be tried in Portugal by interfering directly in the case. The next case is related with a bank called Espírito Santo. Essentially, it's the same type of crimes, corruption and fraud, and many others, involving the most powerful banker in Portugal, Ricardo Salgado, a friend of many socialists like José Sócrates, the former prime minister, and also Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa. Ricardo Salgado is actually a personal friend of the current president. The next case is Operação O Negativo, or O Negative. Again, it's corruption, in this case in the health business, involving Octapharma, a company for which José Sócrates worked for after he left the Portuguese government in 2011 after bankrupting Portugal for the third time in less than 50 years. The next case is related with a very large company that supplies electricity in Portugal called EDP. And the crimes are corruption and specifically crimes against the Portuguese state by ensuring that this company, a giant near-monopolistic company that supplies electricity, with the help of former ministers from José Sócrates' government, such as Manuel Pinho, were guaranteed a payment from the Portuguese state regardless of the needs of the market for the energy supplied. This resulted in the fact that Portugal has some of the highest prices for electricity in Europe. This is also the case where Ivo Rosa denied access to the mails of Manuel Pinho and EDP board members for the purpose of this investigation. The next case is related with the trips to Euro 2016. This case involves members of the socialist government receiving benefits from private companies, namely Galp Energia, to watch football games in 2016. The next case is related with Tancos. Essentially, there was a big heist of military-grade weapons that were stolen from a military complex in Portugal. Both the army and the socialist government tried to ignore the case, claiming that the weapons were going to be destroyed anyway, so it wasn't a big deal. But the weapons were recovered after the military police staged that recovery to look like it was a proper operation. The bulk of the weapons that were stolen were there, but some were still missing. This cover-up and staging of the recovery involved the Minister of Defense of the socialist government and went up to the president, Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa, who is the commander-in-chief of the Portuguese military. Then the case of the tragic fires of 2017. The socialist government was responsible for replacing many commanders of civil protection in the beginning of 2017 with socialist party members with no experience in civil protection. In fact, some of them didn't even have valid degrees in the areas they claimed to have degrees. This resulted in extreme incompetence while managing ground and air resources while fighting the huge fires of 2017, namely the fire in Pedrógão Grande that cost the lives of 120 people that year. Then the case involving a care facility called Raríssimas. Paula Brito e Costa was accused of improperly using funds awarded to a care facility by falsifying documents to get those advantages. This was eventually connected to the socialist Sónia Fertuzinhos, wife of the socialist minister Vieira da Silva, that traveled at the expense of that care institution that received funds from the Portuguese state. The next case is the government credit cards case, where essentially two socialists from José Sócrates' government used government credit cards to buy items for themselves, absolutely not related with their job. And finally, Operação Lex. A case involving a judge, Rui Rangel, who is accused of selling a specific verdict in exchange for money. Rui Rangel would also try to influence other judges to do the same, and he favored Luís Filipe Vieira, the president of a big football club in Portugal, of which António Costa, the prime minister, is a fan of, and was even part of the campaign list of Luís Filipe Vieira for the presidency of that club. Luís Filipe Vieira is also responsible for a large hole in a bank in Portugal called Novo Banco, which was created after Banco Espírito Santo collapsed. Essentially, Luís Filipe Vieira asks for huge loans to Novo Banco for his shady deals, doesn't pay what he owes to that bank, and then António Costa, as prime minister and friend of Luís Filipe Vieira, injects hundreds of millions of euros of the Portuguese taxpayer to cover for the shady deals of Luís Filipe Vieira. These are probably the biggest cases that Joana Marques Vidal had in her hands, and when she was the Prosecutor General in Portugal, some of these cases actually were being investigated and accusations were made. But António Costa and Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa made sure she wouldn't be carried over to another term. They replaced her with a new puppet of the regime, Polituagl Gab, that already tried to limit the action of the public prosecutors when investigating cases. Some of these cases were already dismissed, actually. Some are still active, but little to nothing is known about them, and with Polituagl Gab, nothing will come of them, and no socialist or any other criminal will spend a single day in prison for their crimes. Joana Marques Vidal was an enemy of the socialists and had to be removed with the help of Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa. And just like Joana Marques Vidal, Ana Carla Almeida dared to investigate the criminal actions of the socialists that were profiting from selling snake oil anti-smoke cloths and taking advantage of the tragic fires in 2017 that killed 120 people in Portugal. José Guerra, however, is a good asset for the socialists in the new European Public Prosecutor's Office. He will be responsible for making sure to warn the Portuguese socialists of what is being investigated, and if it involves Portugal at all. José Guerra is like a Trojan horse, or even a virus, infecting the body that is supposed to go after those that commit fraud and corruption with European funds. And the European Union doesn't really care about it because they accepted the nomination and closed the case after the socialist government sent the correct information about José Guerra, which shows just how important for the EU it is to have proper and competent people in that body. Portugal is bankrupt economically, socially, and morally, and 100% of the blame goes directly to this deadly ideology, socialism. It infects and corrupts everything. Nothing survives, and the Portuguese people itself is as corrupt as those they elect. So why would anyone be concerned with the fact that the socialist government lied about the qualifications of the representative of Portugal in the new EU body? No one cares. In fact, everyone already forgot about it. Anyway, I hope you like this, and I'll see you next time.